In a couple of weeks, I'm going to White Castle to take the place of Father Alex Sheldon. When I go to different parts of the state of Louisiana and see how the sugarcane is growing, it reminds me of my younger days when I used to ride my bike from our house to the end of our little town in the Midwest and see all the corn stalks that were growing. For those of you who drive wherever the sugarcane is growing and feel like you're surrounded, it's like that in Illinois as well with corn stalks, especially from my small town. If I go to major areas like Rockford or Peoria or Springfield, there's plenty of corn. Sometimes you wonder where the people are. What does that have to do with what we heard this morning? What is emphasized? St. Paul tells us we walk by faith, not by sight, as we also sung in coming in. The Lord our God is who is in charge, not us. And we should always center ourselves upon the Lord our God when we gather in worship. One of the things about growth is that it calls us to be patient, to be understanding, to allow the growth to nurture itself and to come and to show us all. As a people of God, it means that we realize God is definitely in charge. The Israelites so often would deviate from their path of faith, and yet they were called back constantly to suffering. They learned they had to grow in their faith, in their relationship with the Lord our God. So it is for Christians. So it is for anyone today who walks by faith. We have to realize God is in charge. This gospel written this morning was emphasized to the early church, which was undergoing persecution. And let God take control, that things will be okay, that things will function well. And it has. Stop and realize, stop and think, reflect. When the Lord Jesus left his disciples, he sent them out. For the most part, an uneducated group. For the most part, a very underfunded group. For the most part, a group who went to an audience that really didn't want to hear the message. And yet the church grew. And we grow today, and we continue to grow. The seed was planted. It was watered by the faith of many who have gone before us. And under God, it still grows. It's very much like a preacher had mentioned in one of his homilies many years ago, that when he went to Maine, the state of Maine, and saw all the apple orchards, and saw the trees there, and he was amazed at how they were propped up and everything, and so forth. And he asked one of the owners or workers why this was done. And they said, well, for one thing, the trees, of course, needed this. But in order to understand the whole idea of growth, look at the very bottom. And there you'll see a gash. And that ugly gash enables, for we do not know the full reason, for the tree, when it starts going to wood and leaves, suddenly function to being fruit, and apples grow. Likewise, what is indicated today in the readings is that we do not always understand God's ways. We do not always understand how we grow. But the one thing is, we have to be open to that growth. We have to expand our horizons. The early disciples, when they went out, had no idea what they were to encounter many times, other than the fact that they would not be immediately accepted. And yet some of them were welcomed. Some of them were able to really enable the church at that time to grow. Probably much smaller than the numbers we are today. But even so, it did. And look where we are in this world. Our growth is dependent on our openness to our God and to realizing God works in our lives. It means, in turn, that we try to always allow God to be in control. We're not the ones. We try. There is no doubt in it. But God is the one who's in charge. When we come together Sunday after Sunday, it is the fact of the realization of our dependency upon our God, hopefully, and in turn placing ourselves in the presence of God in the sense of trying to determine where God is leading me day in and day out. One of the things I've discovered since my retirement and growing older is the fact that what is required at this time of life is probably more patience than I've ever extended or shown. And that I don't always show. But the thing of it is the realization of how things are working, how vast this world is, how complicated it is, how I should be concerned of what is going on. You know, Pope Francis said several years ago that when you see something, especially on television or on the internet or wherever you use whatever your social media service may be, that when you see a situation that you know demands prayer, well, pray. Pray at that moment. Pray for those people. Pray for that situation, whatever the case may be. This is the way we show our faith. It doesn't mean it's going to change. Look how long the war is going on in Palestine, in Gaza, Jerusalem. Look how long the war is going on in Ukraine. But it's because we are a people of hope, because that hope has been handed on to us, that we continue to pray and center ourselves upon our God and realize that that which is planted will grow and grow. Our responsibility is to acknowledge that growth. Our responsibility is to try to cooperate with it. Our responsibility is to continue to show the hope to others, to pray, to encourage, and especially for ourselves, to show what it is to be a person who does walk by their faith. As we go on with our week, what is one way I'm going to show that my faith is growing? Will it be through someone else or assisting someone else? Will it be through some other type of action? What is the step that I will take?